Okay, it's a new week, Monday, and I need gas. Okay, I gotta get gas first, then I drive to Münster, and then I will prepare 5 electric boxes standing in a row. In fact, those 5 boxes have been painted before, not by me, by somebody else many years ago. They look terrible now, so I will redo the entire painting. Okay, so the biggest issue here is going to be finding a good parking spot that's close by to where I have to work. So I'm hoping that's not going to be as much of a struggle. This is going to be annoying, not gonna lie. Well, turns out it's not that big of a deal. I found a parking spot close by, still had to walk a little bit, but that is totally okay. Well, this is it. And if you work in a city where bicycles are the main mean of transportations, you're gonna face issues like this a lot, where bicycles are blocking your painting object. So that's just part of the deal. And so is cleaning those things. They're usually super dirty and they need to be prepped properly before you can start painting whatsoever. So I'm using one of those scrapers to get rid of all the old placards as well as stickers and stuff like that. Also a little bit of gardening is also part of the job. And now that I got rid of all the weeds, the whole thing already looks quite a lot better. And I can start sanding it. Just a little bit more moss on the base here. And then I get to sand the whole thing. Get rid of the old paint, get rid of the dirty surface, so the primer will stick really well to it. When I started doing these electric boxes, I was sanding them by hand with sandpaper like this. I still use that for the edges and for the parts that I can't reach with the orbital sander. If I had to sand this down all by hand, that would have been terrible and would have taken me probably 10 times longer. Now I'm applying the primer here. I do several layers. It's not covering super well, at least on the camera. It doesn't look like it, but that doesn't really matter because I'm going to spray paint over it. There will be a few areas where I leave the white shine through, but I'll take care of that later. That's it for day number 1. Yeah, it's over 5 hours of sanding that thing straight. But I think a good prep work is half the battle, so looking forward coming back tomorrow and starting the actual artwork. Okay, see you tomorrow. Yeah, all those little edges and corners, they really do add up, but we got it all done and we can finally start painting. As you can see, there's a whole bunch of bikes again. Even though I put a barrier tape up, I just attached it to one of the bikes that seemed very old and very abandoned, just to keep the people from parking their bikes too close to the boxes. Didn't really help that much, but you know, better than nothing, and I was able to move them a little further back by hand. So what you can see here now is the typography that's supposed to be on there. It says Kreuzviertel, Cross District. That's what this part of the city is called. So yeah, we got a little bit of local patriotism going on here. I used my cutting plotter to cut this out. Very tedious stuff, tedious work, but I rather spend a little bit more time and make it extra clean than doing a sloppy job. So what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna use white paint, the background color basically, to seal off all the edges around the stencils here. So just to make sure that the color I'm spraying on next, which is blue as you can see here, doesn't flow behind the stencils and causes drips I don't want. So now the fun part starts. I get to paint a whole bunch of clouds. I love painting clouds. It's always very, very fun and has a great effect. Here I'm taking off the stencils, and as you can see, the white shines through. You can barely see any of the previous paint shining through, and the spots where it did, I made sure to go in with white paint again and fix that later at the very end. So on the very left box, I paint the church. It's called Kreuzkirche, which translates to cross church. It's right around the corner, and I got my concept art with me. I kind of eyeball that, just trying to translate my sketch onto the box as accurately as possible. And then I continue painting the background, because you should always paint the background first and then paint the things that are closer to you, the main subject, so you can create really sharp edges. For the clouds, I'm using a variety of orange tones, and as well as salmon and dirty apricot, I think. I'm trying to work as close as possible to my concept art, but it is not necessary to paint it exactly how it is on the concept art. It's more or less a guide for me to show the client what the final result will look like, and to have them approve that for me. And that is it for day number 2. Day number 3, here we go. By the way, this is the church I'm painting onto the boxes. So at this point, I already got quite used to moving all the bikes away from the electric boxes, so I got enough room to paint there. Another thing that made this spot fairly problematic was the fact that I was basically sitting on the road. It was just a very narrow piece of sidewalk where I could knee. I always had to watch out for cars. You never know if somebody's not paying attention and running you over, and I really don't want that. So on to the opposite side, which is actually the front side of the electric boxes, and I have to paint the same thing. I reflected the design to be the same on both sides pretty much. And here I'm using my white spatula to create some structure into the church. And here is a carriage with an electric motor. One of the things you have to do when you paint electric boxes is working on the floor, which can be a little bit annoying. It is kind of exhausting, but that's part of the job. And so is making stencils, so you can paint very detailed stuff with the least amount of time. So I made a stencil for this church steeple here. You can also hear the church in the background, as well as a car that's parked at the traffic light. So yeah, I mean, most of the time I've got headphones plugged in and I'm listening to podcasts or something, just to be able to focus a bit more. And then something happens that actually happens quite often whenever I'm out painting in the streets. People bring me food or coffee or something like that.
Oh, das ist aber nett. Dankeschön. Danke, danke. Ja, sicher. Ey, besten Dank, ne?
This is always super awesome. People sometimes accuse me of staging these things, but it is in fact reality. People bring me stuff, which is absolutely phenomenal. And because I'm filming most of my work, I capture those moments naturally. And here's the next person that comes out to offer me coffee and tells me to come inside if I want something. But I was already packing up at that moment and I was about to leave. So I had to decline, thankfully. Sometimes I get the chance to ask these people if they are cool if I put them in the video. Most of the time I don't think of that in the moment. So in respect of their privacy, I am blurring their faces. But I think these moments are really wholesome and I want to keep them in the video and share these moments with you. Now, here I'm doing something I rarely do. I use the tiny pink stencil cap. For projects like this, where you need super thin lines, I highly recommend it. That works really well to get very thin lines with a spray can. But most of the time, I prefer using the McClaim cap for thin lines. But if you go really thin, this is the tool you need to use, and then it's basically about finding a balance and finding just the right amount of detail to paint, because you need to keep in mind that these electric boxes, they will always be looked at from a distance, so there is no need to paint so detailed as you would maybe on a canvas or like a fine art piece. Also, a big thank you to the bakery on the opposite side that brought me a coffee as well, as I was adding the clear coat. Super nice, was very much needed at that point. And yeah, here you have it. This is the updated version of these 5 electric boxes in the heart of Münster and the Cross District. Let me know what you think. I'm super happy with it. It was not the best conditions to paint at, considering the traffic all around me and all the bicycles, but I am very happy with the result and I hope you are too. Let me know. Peace.